Rise and shine!
It's espresso time!
Hey, it's Carmichael, and successful people don't wake up and go, yes, what another day to be alive! But when you have a morning routine that sets you up for success, like watching one of these videos, it will change your life. So let's start your day off right together. Grab your coffee, know that I believe in you, and get ready for a shot of espresso from Gary Vaynerchuk.
I wake up every morning.
Espresso keep me going.
I wake up every morning.
When I transitioned from wine to, let's say, entrepreneurship in my content, it was 2007, 8, 9, and we were going through a global economic crisis. And as you can imagine, as an immigrant who answered your question of what my regret is, I think it's very difficult to give advice that says, become more talented. Be born with more talent. Very not practical. So where I found myself was going to another place that felt very practical to me, and as you can imagine, it's all I ever saw for the first 35 years of my life, which was work ethic was a controllable part of the game, that if you did that, if you're outworking your competition, practicing after practice, all the things we know about sports and music and theater and acting and all these things, that was an incredible advantage. And in a time and place where people were getting laid off and things of that nature, it hit the right tone. It was natural to me and the timing was right.
Hard work is your ticket in. Hard work doesn't guarantee your success, but it's your ticket in. There's nobody who you look up to, who you respect, who you want to be like, who did not work incredibly hard to get to where they're at. Now, people say, work smart, work smart, work. Yes, there's lots of people who work hard and never get anywhere close to their goals. There's lots of people who work incredibly hard who stay earning minimum wage their entire life because they didn't work smart, they were only working hard. But there's nobody who just works smart and doesn't work hard. Even if they're fooling you with their pictures on Instagram, it's that combination of working hard plus working smart. I've covered most of these people, I've hung out with a lot of these people. I see the incredible smarts that they have in the activities that they choose, but also just the work ethic they have, the show up every day and stay consistent on their goals. So in this video, I'm gonna try to give you some tips and steps on how to actually do it. Like, how do you stay consistent? How do you figure out how to work hard, but also work smart on accomplishing your mission? So let's get it started. First off, you have to actually love the thing, right? I mean, how many times have you started a business because you thought it was gonna make you a lot of money? Be honest, I've done it too. You start a business because you think it's gonna make you money, and then you quickly get bored of it. You quickly realize it's not making you money, and you don't wanna do it anymore. And you close it down and move on to the next thing. And so many people are just opportunity hopping, jump to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing without ever actually loving any of the things. And so you never actually win. You might make a little bit of money here and there. You know, you might be able to pay some of your bills off, it's great, but you're not living the life that you want because you're just opportunity hopping instead of actually finding the thing that you love doing. Where the number one rule for success, if you watch any of my videos, we've covered so many people, take my word for it or go do your own research. The number one rule for success is that you have to love what you're doing. You have to love the process, the actual work that you're doing. It doesn't feel like work because you like it so much. Making videos doesn't feel like work because I like it, because I like the process. I like making it. I like making this video more than getting something like this, right? It's great. Hey, 1 million subscribers, awesome. Or the other channel's great. But I like the feeling of making this video knowing that you right now are watching it. That means something to me. I like it. That's why I keep going. Otherwise, it's crazy, you know? 10,000 videos plus later. Why? Like, how do you keep going? Because I like it. It doesn't feel like work to me. I talk about it when I do interviews. You know, how people ask me, how have you not burnt out already? Like, so many people are burning out on YouTube. Well, it's not just YouTube, it's entrepreneurship. People burn out of entrepreneurship, not just having a YouTube channel. Why do you burn out of entrepreneurship? Well, because you stop actually liking, there's too much of the work that you're doing that you don't like anymore. Right? There's too much of the work that you're doing. You might still love the vision for where you're going. If you don't love the vision, you got to get out ASAP. But you might still love the vision, but you're just taking on too much activity that you don't like doing anymore. So when I'm talking to somebody on their podcast, I like doing interviews. It makes me happy. It brings me joy to try to hit somebody else's audience, right? To try to spread belief to an even wider net. And so if I'm talking to somebody, I say, well, does this work for you? Because in talking to you, this doesn't work for me. This is fun. I'm gonna leave this interview with more energy than I came in. That's a sign that you're doing the right thing. So I like this, thank you. You're giving me, I'm giving you content and exposure for your channel, but you're giving me a gift because this is fun. You're giving me more energy. It doesn't feel like work. The second it starts to feel like work, you have to adjust, and it might be a big adjustment. Maybe you shouldn't be doing your business anymore, period, because you were just opportunity hopping, you don't actually love the thing. Or maybe you just need to make a minor adjustment and realize, okay, this makes sense as a strategy, but it's just not the right strategy for me. I need to move on and do something else. Even though it works for some other people, it's not me. I don't want to do it. So that's where we start transitioning to working smart, right? So working hard is you showing up every day, working towards your goals, that your purpose means something to you, and that the work you do, you actually enjoy and having fun in. The working smart is then figuring out there's so many different ways to win inside your industry. There's so many different ways to win. There's so many people who have one, and there's not just one path. This is where we get locked up, is feeling like I have to do it this way, but you don't actually love doing it that way. And the second you start taking things on because you think it's the smart thing to do, but you have no interest in doing it, you will never win. You will never win doing work that you hate. It's not gonna happen. You will never win doing work that you hate. You'll say that you'll do whatever it takes, you won't. You'll quit, you'll give up on it because you don't like it. Chasing the goal alone is not enough. You have to actually enjoy the process of getting to the goal, that the process becomes more important than the goal. It gives you more satisfaction and happiness and pleasure than hitting the goal. How many times have you hit a goal and then been disappointed after, right? You're like, oh, what's next? Sometimes borderline depression, right? Ted Turner's dad had a goal to hit $1 million. He did it, and then he killed himself because he thought things were gonna change, but he realized his life was still the same. So having goals are really good and important, but more important than the goal is the process of accomplishing the goal. You have to actually like the work. So how do you be smart? Well, you have to do things that bring value to people that you also enjoy. So in the course of my career, on YouTube at least, I've got a bunch of great compliments. The two that stand out in this context are GaryVee and Ed Milet, where GaryVee said, I'm the content DJ that inspires people. He said, hey, you watch so many videos and then DJ it to inspire people. And Ed Milet said that I'm the modern day Napoleon Hill, that Napoleon Hill is the greatest person in personal development history, and that I'm the modern day Napoleon Hill. Now, when they both said that, like, I don't know, I'm still working on receiving compliments, so I was kind of blown away by both of them. And then I asked, hey, well, can I use that in my in my bio or my profiles? But what I do is I love modeling success. You know, it's why I make all this content. It's why I have all these people, you know, behind me on the wall. You know, we got Steve Jobs and A.P. Giannini and my parents and Howard Schultz and Kanye West. Like, I love modeling success. And I want to share my own voice, my own thoughts, my own opinions, my own learnings, my own stories, my own lessons. And somewhere in that mix is now Evan Carmichael, where some people are, if you look at Gary or Ed or whoever else, they're just sharing their own thoughts for the most part. They might have guests on at interviews. They might occasionally have a quote from somebody else, but it's their own views and opinions. I never needed to be the guy. You know, I like sharing other people's stuff. I like sharing what I learned from their story. And I've reluctantly kind of stepped forward to share my own. I used to think nobody would care about my story or what I had to say, or why would you care about me when I'm showcasing Elon Musk? Like, who am I? But people kept asking for my story, where I came from. So I started sharing it more. And so in that mix became Evan Carmichael. That's how I'm different than everybody else. Same thing for you. You know, what do you love doing that then can also bring value to other people? And what combinations of things can you bring together instead of thinking I can do this or I can do this? In the mix is your next great opportunity. When you can take 2 or 3 of your interests and not do them as the or, right? Instead of thinking or, you think and. Instead of or, you think and. But not 3 different businesses. This is where people get tripped up. It's not 3 different businesses. It's one business that does all 3 of those things combined in a way that nobody else has done it before. Because nobody can replicate that. The thing that you love doing, or the things that you love doing, smushed together that don't make sense for anybody else, is how you're gonna end up winning. That's how you're gonna win. James Altucher calls it idea sex. So you have one idea and another idea, and they have sex, and then out comes your great idea. I like it. That's how you start working smart. So working hard is your ticket in. Working hard, if you're not willing to work hard, you're just not ever gonna win, period. How do you work hard? Well, you actually have to like the work so it doesn't feel like work. That Jerry Seinfeld calls it the torture you can endure, that it's torture for other people, but for you, he's like, I like this. This is fun. This doesn't feel like torture. You know, the idea of making 10,000 videos, 12,000 videos, whatever, that would be torture for a lot of people. It's like, okay, that's cool. I like it. Let's go. Let's make another 10,000. Let's keep going. And then inside of that is, what do you love doing that can bring value to other people in a way that only you can do it? By mixing some of the things, your passions, your interests together that have never been mixed before together in that unique way, that's how you're gonna win. Instead of saying that that's not practical, instead of saying that they're two different businesses, instead of saying nobody's gonna care, no, that's how you're gonna win. You mix those things together, focus on then how you can use that mix to bring value to your customers, and now nobody can touch you. For people message me and say, hey Evan, this person is copying you. This person is also doing top 10 rules for success. This person is like, I don't care. Like, I spend zero time thinking about that, because if you are just trying to be Evan Carmichael, you're never gonna be Evan Carmichael, right? The most you're gonna be is an Evan Carmichael Jr. Instead of trying to be an Elvis impersonator, go make your own music, right? So anybody who's just trying to copy me, I don't care about it. It's the people who are creating new, innovative things that I consider to be the real competition. Hard work is your ticket in. You have to love what you're doing. That allows you to keep going. Then you have to figure out inside of what you love, how can you combine your interests, your passions, your special things that make you a special, unique snowflake to bring value to people. And when you figure that out, that's the unique angle of working hard plus working smart. That won't even feel like you're working hard or even working that smart. You're just doing you and helping people. And that's how you win. Now I've got a special bonus clip that I think you're gonna enjoy. But before that, it's time for the question of the day. I wanna know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week? When you watch a video and just get motivated, the science says you have a 35% chance of actually following through on your goals. That's not good enough. No, not for you, Believe Nation. We gotta do something. But when you write it down and you create a specific plan of action for the next week, that number jumps to 91% chance of you following through. And when you commit to somebody else, like leaving a comment on this video, it jumps to 95%. You need to follow through on your goals. So what was your single biggest takeaway from this video and your specific plan of action for the next week? Put it down in the comments below so I can celebrate you. Also, if you want to have more self-confidence and self-belief, the science says it can take up to 254 days of consecutive action for you to shift that habit forward. So I've designed a special free program to help you get more self-belief for every day. For 254 days, I will send you an email to an unlisted video that if you watch it, will shift your confidence forward. The links to join for free are in the description below.
The reason people aren't patient is they value other people's opinions too much. I think everybody here, if I told them everything is gonna be okay, you can have everything you want, now what are you gonna do with your day? I think a lot of people know. I always choose positivity. I look at other people around me. It's not just about me that are winning. They choose positivity. I look at the people around me that are not winning, that are not progressing, that are not advancing, that are choosing negativity. I also think that all of these things that we're talking about can be scaled, right? So my career is going along nicely, and I'm winning on email marketing, 90% open rates, and I'm winning on Google AdWords the day it comes out. I'm buying every wine term, that's working for my dad. And then comes along YouTube. And I see this platform and I say to myself, there's something here. And you can't run ads on it at the time. So I decided to do a show. And I never thought of myself as I thought of myself as gift of gab, but more like a good salesman or a class clown that the teacher kind of liked, And so I didn't realize what I was gonna be able to do in that format, but I started a very big show that garnered a lot of attention, and it really, really worked, and it really got going, and it really taught me, oh my God, I don't have to spend marketing money. This attention is trickling down organically to my dad's business. There's something here. And then Twitter came out and I started using it to promote Wine Library TV. And I'm like, oh my God, this Friendster MySpace thing is about to become much bigger. It wasn't called social media yet. It was called Web 2.0. Twitter was known as a Web 2.0 app. And I started using it, and Google buys YouTube for $1.7 billion. And I say to myself, oh my God, I was right about this. I was right about Google AdWords. I was right about email. I'm not a wine retailer. I understand what people are gonna do. I need to become an investor in what I think people are gonna do. In 2007, I invested in Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr. And that obviously changed my life. My brother was graduating from college. I was starting to make videos about business that were catching people's attention. And in 2009, I decided to start VaynerMedia to do marketing for the biggest brands in the world so I could learn big business, because I understood Silicon Valley, I understood small business entrepreneurship, but I didn't understand executive Fortune 500 land, and I didn't understand why they were doing so many silly things in a world where I thought Netflix, Facebook, Amazon were gonna be the next big thing, and they turned out to be way bigger than I even kind of predicted, even though I was predicting the tippy top. And so that's been my career. I've written 5 New York Times best-selling books around marketing and consumer behavior and psychology. But what does all this hyperbole around me mean? It means that I believe that every person who's watching this right now is me in 2009. Here's what I mean by that. I had a level of success. I was good. I was enjoying myself. I was building a big company for my parents. I was excited to think about what I was gonna do for myself next. But the scale of the internet, by using the tools, completely changed my life. And I believe that what the internet does is exposes things. So I don't think the internet changed me. I don't think it made me nicer and stronger at my craft. I think it made more people aware that I was nice and strong at my craft. And so I think for everybody who's watching right now, I don't think they realize that if they started producing content on LinkedIn about what they know, not what you think people want, not to get followers, but to put out content of what you know. Storytell. My grandpappy taught me when I was 10, this, I now did this for my salesperson today. That's the video. You don't have to be an expert. I'm not an expert. I'm a person that has hypotheses and opinions. And because a lot of them became true after 15 years, and I've put the actual business wins on the board, now people look at me in a different way. But I don't even the flattering introduction and our talk beforehand, she makes me feel so good, but I don't think that makes me special. I think it's just a nice feeling to be admired, and I think when you layer humility and curiosity around being good at a tool, great things happen. Let me give you an example. When books came out, I'm being serious now. When books came out, clearly, and I have no knowledge of this, but this is very easy to understand, clearly there were individuals who became more aggressive at reading them and amassed knowledge. And my intuition is the ones that were able to be practical and operating were able to do something with that knowledge and succeed. When tractors and innovation hit farming, the people that didn't demonize it, and many did, many said that's not real farming because they were fearful that it was gonna take away jobs from their people, which was a nice thing, but they were trying to fight technology, which is always the wrong answer. Let there be no confusion. If you hear or feel anything from this keynote and Q&A today, please let it be this. If you are fighting against technology, you will lose. It is the history of mankind. I love that everybody's so into math and big data and quant and have not deployed the level of gratitude around the math of 400 trillion to 1, which is the odds of being a fucking human being. There's nothing you'll ever accomplish that's more remarkable than that you have a chance to accomplish something. If we can lean into gratitude, there you go, a lot of good can happen. I don't know. I'm just super grateful, and it is an enormous. There is no Red Bull, there is no fucking soda or coffee that comes anywhere close to gratitude. People think I'm fucking drugged the fuck up. I haven't even smoked a cigarette in my life, because my mom got fucking Nancy Reagan'd, you know, and so I just came to realize, oh, this insanity is predicated on gratitude. When you're so grateful for the at-bat, you're happy. But people dwell about.
Yeah, the small stuff is so small. And
people are like mad when they get the wrong milk. Like seriously, I go to Starbucks, you know, I travel a lot, you go to Starbucks and like, I asked for almond milk. I'm like, this fucker bought a $7 coffee. Like, it's crazy. The fuck is the matter with people? We need to start some sort of cultural rule that anybody who's mean to somebody that works at Starbucks should get punched in the throat. Like, it should become a meme. Like, it's the collective responsibility of somebody to punch that person in the face. I worked for my dad's liquor store when I was from 22 to 34 years old. I built my dad's liquor store to a $60 million business, and at 34 years old, I left and had nothing. It was my dad's business. I would inherit it one day, but I hope my dad lives forever and I'll be 90, right? So, like, I did what I thought was right. Different circumstance, but I did what I thought was right. I was an immigrant kid. My parents took me from shitty Russia to America. I wanted to pay them back. I worked my face off, gave up all my 20s, right? Super easy to be humble with her when you're humble. You know? So, you know, when I hear you asking that question without knowing every one of your details, I think you gotta do what you have to do to get to the next step to give yourself more options. Got it? So like if you're good at it and it works and it can get you to that next spot that gives you options at 30, how old are you?
I'm 15.
Mazel. You're 15. If that can get you to a place at 27 that gives you options, you'll be a kid at 27. At 15, you think 27's dead, old. I get it. I remember. But I'm telling you to your face, it's young kid. You're a young kid. How many people here would love to be 27?
I am.
I want to go away from home.
Get to that next spot. I get it. Listen, let me tell you one thing that you will not hear often. The person that knows how to eat the most amount of usually eats the most amount of caviar. Got it? You need to eat, get to the next spot. Not directly, but you understand? If it's good like that and that can get you to the next spot, that's perfect, regardless of what it is. Whatever gets you to the next spot is exactly, move forward. It's good, man. I'm glad if you have something like that brewing, that excites me. That's real easy for me to see how it can go for you. You just gotta be patient. That's where you gotta stay disciplined and save that money and not buy all the stuff that's getting fed to you that you need. It's hard to get to the next spot when you spend $700 to buy a Supreme bag. There's a really dirty secret in the strategy world of like Bain and McKinsey where if you really get them drunk, they admit that the actions lead to the strategy, not the other way around. That's my answer to you. How? I make decisions. And then I try to look at my calendar the week ahead and see if any decisions I made 4 weeks earlier that made me think this was a good use of time. Am I able to move something, cut something down? I'm extremely thoughtful about cutting times of meetings. So one of the things I think that really make me successful is understanding a 7-minute meeting is real and not just making it a 30-minute meeting. But the real reason is because I don't overthink it. I'm operating my business, I'm in it. How do I decide between going to dinner with Kevin Hart because I can and I want to build top of the funnel brand, or do I go take a mid-level client that I'm trying to build a relationship with? It's, you know, you ask every normal person, it seems like those aren't super close, but I can touch the pulse and be like, I'm going to LA 4 more times in the next 3 months. You know, the biggest mistakes I make are the ones of missed opportunities of the things by being crippled by opportunity. When you actually level that all up, my friend, it really is liberating. You will never even come close to making the right decision. I mean it. You just don't know what the alternative would be. People think that there's a right answer. You as an operator of your business make the right call that feels right at that moment, and just move. And people spend all this time and money on trying to think that there's a proper answer. I play on the extremes. I spend as much time as possible on the things that are showing me the most offense, right? However you're doing your customer acquisition to get to a hundo on a product like that, like whether it's Facebook, whether it's brand, and then I spend the amount of time on my biggest vulnerability. You know, putting my finger in the holes to make sure the boat doesn't sink, and building a bigger f***ing boat, and nothing in the middle. And knowing that I'm making that judgment at all times, and the second I get new data a week later, I might have to completely change what I thought was right the week before. It's also why I spend a ton of time with my employees. The reason I'm an HR-driven CEO is if you really understand this, both your biggest growth and your biggest vulnerabilities are actually your own team. So I think it's a lack of, it starts with the ability not to overjudge yourself, because that is the liberator of the model I just broke down for you. When are you gonna start talking? What are you waiting for? If you are not communicating, you don't exist. I believe that. If you are not communicating, you do not exist. More importantly, communicate about what you love. What scares me about the long tail of the internet is I know there's somebody sitting in here who's watched every episode of Friends, okay? Deeply loves Friends. Can't get enough in their own mind of debating Rachel and Ross. Loved the show. Watch it every night to go to sleep to, and I know they make $49, $62, $88, $103,000 a year doing something they don't like. And I know that if they started a podcast about Friends every day when they went home, instead of consuming content to escape the fact that they don't like their job, if they created content around the thing they love, that after 24, 36, 48 months, that along could have came Netflix and been a sponsor of that podcast that would allow them to actually leave that job they hate and now be a full-time Friends podcaster. You don't believe that. I understand that. That seems like a far-fetched story to you. The problem is you don't live my life, because I wrote a book in 2009 called Crush It that laid this out, and I get to live the best life now where I get 3 to 6 emails a day of people that tell me this exact story. Whether it's about pickles. People like pickles. I do too. I eat pickles like crazy. Star Trek. Esports, don't even get me started, because I used to push it a lot and people have gone completely and made real careers in that. Just stuff. I just really, really, really hope you hear me today. If you're self-aware, you don't try to do things you can't do. You focus on things you do like. You don't try to be something you're not. If you have self-esteem, you're not scared to put it out, the content, the video, the picture, the audio, because you're not worried if Sally Pants 49 thinks you're ugly. You're not worried that Rick Thompson from a competitive company says you're stupid. You're just not worried. You're not worried that you have bags under your eyes, or you're overweight, or you're losing your hair. You're just not worried. You're focused on your self-esteem. You're focused on yourself. You're focused on your self-awareness, which puts you in a position to succeed. And so all of you, one of the challenging times in my career was around 2012 when people all wanted to be like me. And I'm a very, very over-the-top, high-energy personality who's very, very comfortable on video. And that is just not gonna be the case for everybody. And I tell everybody, and it took me a while to get to this good answer, which I think has helped people. Listen, my friends, if you're watching this right now and being like, okay, I see what Gary's setting up. He's gonna ask me to start producing a lot more content. That's the answer, by the way. Well, I don't wanna do video. Well, I'm like, good news, Sarah. You don't have to do video. For example, I'm a terrible writer. If I was a great writer, I'd be writing a lot more. Because writing on LinkedIn crushes. As a matter of fact, my team loves when I write all the copy on my Instagram posts, right? All of them, everyone, every post in my life. And they get pumped when I get motivated and like write a real good one, because we know the post does better. Copy is the most underrated thing in social media today. It drives so much of the success of the picture and the video. So, by the way, you might be an audio, you might be a talker, but you're insecure about your visual of how you look, or the camera makes you freeze, but you're great with talking, so good. There's now Clubhouse, an incredible app you can go and be a thought leader in. There's just recording audio and posting that on your LinkedIn. LinkedIn, for this group, knowing who's in the room, is equivalent to what Facebook was in 2012. That will lead to incredible financial and emotional success to those in here that heed the call that I'm yelling today. Period, end of story. I could not be more passionate about everybody here getting very serious. And then what you put out is up to you. You know, my recommendation is that it brings value to people, whether it's entertaining, whether it's informational. But I also believe that stories are easier for people. This is something that I'm gonna start talking a lot more about. I think stories, just stories, like life lessons. Grandma told me, and then if you're good at, and I've already brought this up, I'm gonna bring it up again because I'm trying to help everybody here, give you some training wheels. If you say, hi, I'm Karen, I'm a sales lead at this company. This is for my team, but honestly, this is for the broader world because all you sales leaders, I know how it is. You know, when I was 9, my grandmother took me to a Girl Scouts event and Sarah Johnson did this and I did this and grandma told me to do that and then I did this and me and Sarah Johnson were best friends in high school. And that's ironic because I had a big tiff between Carl and Carla recently on my team and I did this, like my grandma did that, and now they just closed the biggest account together. That story, that should come very natural. And by the way, you don't need to call out Carl and Carla, right? Because that's active. You're in the world right now. You can be 2 people on my team. Just think about how easy that is for what everyone's struggling with, which is, well, what do I post? What do I post is grounded in lack of self-esteem and lack of strategy. Period. And so I'm here today to build your self-esteem, and not in a delusional way. I'm just trying to encourage you to realize how real this is, because the content creators that build awareness and audiences will have the leverage in business, whether it's a small, narrow world. And by the way, this is a small, narrow sector, most of the business people on this call in this thing. That's great, actually. The reality is that's great, because then you run a couple of dollars in ads on LinkedIn against targets of companies that are in your sector, and you're getting exactly who you want. I actually like when groups are narrow, because you can get so much more specific. I think, again, what I'm really trying to establish in this talk this morning is, I don't think people have quantified the opportunity. I struggle, regardless of circumstance, with people dwelling or complaining in a world where the internet is free, has no idea who you are, could care less, it's right there, and it becomes a game of skill, not necessarily finances, to actually win. It's interesting to me. It's interesting to me that you can be in the retail business overnight by setting up a Shopify account, which costs nothing, when that same action to sell something 30 years ago meant that you had to sign a lease and build out a store and rely on the local traffic that walked by. It scares me and excites me that the biggest music company in the world, Spotify, was built in Sweden by a kid. And on and on and on, and you've heard every story. But more importantly, for every ridiculous story we've seen of Instagram or Facebook or Uber or Spotify, there are hundreds of thousands of stories of people with wins that are micro versions. I actually think the most unhealthy thing in entrepreneurship and opportunity is the big stories that everybody thinks they have to build $1 billion company. I think we do not talk enough about the practical $150,000 a year, $300,000 a year, $700,000 a year business that you genuinely love what you do, and you can live your life being happy and financially sound, and what the cost of entry to be able to do that is in today's environment, which, once again, let me say it very slow, between putting out a media company, if you decide to put that on a WordPress or a Squarespace, a retail company, on the back of a Shopify, you could start a radio show that is global on the back of just uploading something you record on your memos on your phone and upload onto Spotify and Apple and SoundCloud. My friends, distribution is free. I know it's a nerdy thing. Like, it's not like some big profound statement, but let me say it nice and slow. Distribution is free. It used to cost a fortune. Now what you put inside of it is the variable of your success, not your financial capabilities to create the distribution. You have to, like, I wish we could zoom in. I literally have goosebumps on my neck right now. No, but really, I really do. It's like a very, I will live my last breath trying to get people to understand this is remarkable. This is a game of perspective. Are you educated or capable of seeing it from the lens that I'm speaking about today, which is the barrier to reach the end person, whether you're a financial advisor and trying to get to a client, whether you sell bow ties, whether you want to be, how about the fact if you want to be a professional football player and now there's all these websites where you can upload your film because the scout didn't come to your tiny, tiny town and now you actually can be discovered. Like, everything has changed. My question and my dream every time I speak is, can I get one person in this room to get their piece? What do you have to do to be successful? I think people like us don't understand how, I think in history, people look back at what I figured out as a really important moment, which is, it is remarkable that I don't spend any time being Gary Vee. I figured out my model, which was following me. You're not gonna be able to do that.
Exactly right.
If you take 15 to 20 minutes, and whether we help with that infrastructure, you get an intern, a million different things, but let me tell you how easy it could be. If you text, I'm gonna just use them, Sal, and be like, this week I wanna talk about cryptocurrency. If Sal shows up downstairs at the bar of your building or at the Starbucks, and that 15 minutes is Sal asking you 4 questions, and you answer them, and then that is a LinkedIn post the next day in first person,
Right.
Sal writing it.
Yeah.
That is what I've done. I run a 900 person company. I don't have time to do, like, what I'm doing is, I'm filming this right now. This meta moment might be how a busy executive said I want it. How a busy executive needs just 15 minutes to be in the content game.
Got it.
This right here is how I figured it out, right? Originally, it was the Ask Gary Vee show where I did have to sit down for an hour and interview Hannah and her 6-year, at VaynerMedia, right? Now, I've gone much further down to Daily V, where I'm just being filmed because I don't even have that fucking hour to do that YouTube show. Then I did that for 3 years, and all of a sudden I'm like, that content's getting stale. And weirdly, in the last month, I'm back to doing a little bit of Ask Gary Vee. I'm fighting for that hour. But the key is, how do you not disrupt yourself? But you need to have something that's a pillar. Grew up in an environment where my dad worked every minute to try to make it in the new world, and he eventually owned a liquor store in New Jersey. I was dragged into that when I was 14. And really from day one, I started doing 2 things that are interesting to me. I started doing a lot of UI, UX, which in the way I would say that was, I started moving my dad's store around. I used to stand behind the register, and it wasn't that busy, right? Like, where I could watch almost every customer walk in, and where would they go, and what would they buy, and intuitive as 14, I would understand, like, why do we send them that way, where we sell stuff that's not as expensive as over here. Like, really, in hindsight, a lot of this stuff in the last 5 years I've recalled. Even lemonade, when I was 6 years old, instead of standing behind my own lemonade stands, I got my friends to do it, because I would literally walk up and down the streets of New Jersey, watching cars drive by to try to figure out what tree or what post to put a sign on. So I've been truly intuitively chasing attention my whole life. As a matter of fact, that's gonna bubble up in a minute. One of the biggest reasons I push against television advertising and think it's grossly overpriced and overrated is not because I don't believe in the craft or a 30-second video, it's that I don't believe people are consuming them. I think that needs to matter. You could literally make the greatest thing of all time. It's kind of like the tree in the forest. Like, you're gonna spend 9 months making something that nobody sees, seems like a waste of time. I started the agency with 45 people that didn't work in the industry. I knew nothing about the industry. I read nothing about the industry, so I started VaynerMedia. I built a creative shop that I put media in the name. I had both media and creative under one roof and had no idea that it was unique. So we were doing all these unusual things. What it led to is a very large agency that has not played by the industry rules, but has driven business results for its clients. So now we do have 900 people globally. We do have the US, LA, and New York offices, and London and opening up Singapore, and very frankly, feel very confident we're about to get a big scope for the World Cup in Qatar, and that means Middle East, and looking at, you know, South America. So I think it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. I think because of some of the awards we're winning this week, just I'm feeling from the creative class here a little bit of more of a, okay, you can be in the club, and I'm laughing. I'm like, I don't want to be in the club. I don't mind to be in the club, but there's only one club I wanna be in, which is, wouldn't you wanna be a creative that in real life, when you hang out with your friends, people know what you're talking about? Like, how many more times do people here wanna spend 20 years of their life making TVC that when they talk about it, and they're like, you know, the IBM spot, and their friends and relatives are like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And if they do, it's because they tried really hard to find it, right? I think that people want to, I think if you're creative, I think you want it to be seen. I just don't know what else to say. And I think, you know, what Mike and Adam will tell you if you decide to yap with them after this is, after having careers in fancy places doing fancy stuff, it's fun to make. It, you know, think about all the ideas that you guys have had that will never see the day of life. Like, you guys are all 12 years away, 6 years away, 4 years away from being the final decision maker to actually see something made. Right now, you're politicking and strategizing on how to convince the two people above you to actually make the thing you believe in. You're not in the creative industry, you're in the internal politicking industry. That's why volume will set this industry free. We have interns from day one in ad school being able to see their thoughts in market from the biggest brands in the world. Literally, we have literally interns already in our company that have had more pieces of content seen by humans than some of the people here. That's real. That's going to play out, I hope, for all of you. I want you to be in a place where you get to be creative for real, instead of working at a bank and fighting for a half-pregnant version of your idea to see the world. And that's why so many of you have to do things on the side, because you can't scratch your itch. I do not like negativity. And so in my early years, since I started running companies right from the beginning, my historic vulnerability that I continue to work on and is far great in a better place than it used to be, is in my unbelievable disdain for confrontation and negativity, I wasn't candorous enough and would surprise people when I would fire them. And also created a level of entitlement, which usually led to the firing, because they weren't getting negative feedback, they were just getting positive reinforcement.
And then suddenly something happened.
And they became delusional. No, and unfortunately, it wasn't that suddenly something happened. For the last 3 years, they've always been bad at these three things. I just don't focus on negatives. I focus on positives. They don't hear anything about it. And then they get called into the meeting, probably thinking they're about to get a raise because 4 weeks ago I gave them a high five about something they do well. And then I'm like, hey Jan, hey Rick, you know, we're gonna have to talk about you not being here. And they would be flabbergasted. And I would defend my actions to myself in my 20s and early 30s on they're delusional, how did they not know, couldn't they tell? But a lot of people don't deploy the self-awareness that I was gifted with. It's not, you know, and more importantly, employees always have other side, like everybody, there's always two sides to a story. So over the last 3 or 4 years, and I'll tell you that my brother AJ, who was 22 years old when he became my partner at VaynerMedia 10 years ago, he is far, you know, he's a good balance. My dad is overcritical and only focused on the negative. So I think I naturally was over positive, but then being in the same company with him and a father-son, I almost had to be 100% positive to offset 100% negative, and that's the truth.
In your view, how aware are the average business leaders of the correlation between employee engagement and profitability?
Non-existent. Because CFOs are too literal, an Excel sheet, and 90%, if not 99%, are not deploying emotional intelligence above their financial intelligence, and they are spreadsheet basics. And
do we need new KPIs?
Yes.
How do we How do we clarify this correlation? Because it is there, research shows it's there, you've seen it, others have seen it.
Research oftentimes and reporting doesn't penetrate a cliche CFO. You know, no matter what you and I come and talk from personal experience. Somebody else comes from an academic point of view on this, shows, dear CFO, you are wasting $4.9 million a year of people sitting there and crying and not working, and if you had better engagement, I know that to be true. In my bones, I know that a proper culture creates a scenario where people have better output in the time that they deploy. I know that as an intuitive human. But now let's have some empathy in the other direction. If you're the CFO of Ericsson and you have to report numbers, and you have to report numbers every 90 days, it gets very hard for you to make the investment. Let's play this out. Okay, so Rick and Susan hear us and they deploy, they're bought in, they believe in you and I. What happens next? Well, you have to start putting in money to put into programs. You have to put in money to put into human beings that rev up the culture. All of a sudden, we asked the CFO, who's looking every 90 days on a whim in their mind, because it's not mathematically quantitatable no matter what our reports show, they have to pour money into this for the hope that later it pays dividends.
It's called investment.
I've heard. People don't invest. Honestly, I don't judge myself. Like, I'm prepared for my children to say they wish I was around more. And I'm also prepared for them to show me that I showed them a life of doing what you love, so I taught them how to live. And that doesn't mean about money. And if they go in nonprofit politics, serving the public, whatever they may do, business, I think lead by example matters.
Yeah.
Totally. And I think I got lucky that technology makes me connected more than ever. And I can physically be there way, way, way more than my father was. So I think everyone's different. And I think you don't know. You have children that, this woman in the Philippines, I was at a conference, said something that blew my face off, which was like, she's like, I used to resent my mother because she was like a judge and she worked her face off. And she's like, but then when I got older, it's become the foundation of my happiness. She showed me I could be independent and have a child, and I love her. And it spoke to me because the reason I don't fear working so much and potentially missing stuff when I'm 10,000x more involved than my dad was is because my dad is one of the loves of my life.
Yeah.
We have a tremendous relationship. On the flip side, I don't make the assumption that my kids are going to see it the same way. So I'm mentally prepared for them to be disappointed.
Wow, brother. Wow.
And by the way, one will be and one won't be. That's so cliche, right? I'm open to that. And I'm most open to adjusting. They're going to now be 11 and 8 this summer. Well, maybe things change. And then, by the way, things change when they get older. All of a sudden, the only thing I think about is sitting courtside at Knicks games with my son 2 times a week when he's 14, a New York City kid, grab an Uber, meet me at the Garden, and live life together.
Yeah, yeah.
And that wouldn't have happened. And not that you need courtside. Last row's great for me as well, back to the last story, but let's not get it twisted, especially where my life is. For my son at 13, when he's sitting there and Russell Westbrook comes over and gives him daps, he's gonna be fired the fuck up and it's fun. Now, what I also have to do is make sure I don't buy him so they become spoiled as fuck. So he realizes cool, you want Russell Westbrook to fist bump your son or daughter? Then you better fucking work. The biggest challenge I had to face was about year 6. I was creating entitlement because I was putting too much on my own shoulders.
What do you mean by entitlement?
I was making it too easy for everybody and people got entitled.
Within the company?
Yep.
So you were saying, I'll take this on.
In the macro. I was creating so much top line revenue and everybody was getting raises like crazy. And I was creating such a great culture that I made us soft, which is wild.
Because you were doing the sales and the pitching and everything yourself?
I was impacting so much that 300, 400, 500 people had it too easy. And we had to do a 35 person layoff because I just kind of cut the fat because I didn't need to do it financially. I needed to do it to just culturally get everybody to understand, like, these people that were just like, oh, weren't good at their job. They were nice people, but if we keep carrying this will die.
They weren't great at their job. They were
not even close. They weren't even close.
Yeah.
It was nice people over everything. And that was it. If you weren't nice, you were getting fired. But if you were nice, like that was tough. And it was tough for me to realize, wow, on Tea with Gary Vee, on keynotes and interviews, on the stage, I have great candor and accountability, but in my own shop, I wasn't candorous enough. And I created entitlement because I love happiness and and all that.
And everyone loving you. And yeah.
But I went too far with it. So that was tough. That was a moment because I never got to that level with Wine Library because it was still happening there, but it was a small enough business and a family business, and it was real family, cousins and best friends, that it had a different dynamic. So I didn't see it coming. So that was interesting. The things we said no to that were actually the trigger to a hotter, to a streak, to a heater, that we said, I hope that heaven is where it shows you what life would have been based on choices. I love that I didn't go to some night where at night would have been these two people that would have made this deal with me. Like, I love knowing that like momentum is based on choice, that I've missed momentum many times in my life, and that I've gotten momentum many times in my life. And I love that part of the game actually, which is like decisions actually matter. And sometimes when you have the humility to go to a thing that doesn't seem right, you get something that triggers a domino. And sometimes when you go to something, you're like, I remember sitting down, there's one meeting I remember very vividly with Howard Schultz. I had a meeting with Howard Schultz to kind of I was getting hot, getting in this, and like I got connected. I remember sitting 4 minutes before it. I'm like, I'm about to walk in here and I'm about to blow this dude's face off, and it's going to be a foundational thing. I walked in, we had a 15-minute meeting, 20-minute meeting, and nothing's happened. And I didn't feel like I had an off day. I felt like I gave it, but it didn't click. Whereas when I went to go see Jimmy Iovine for this meeting, I'm like, I'm going to blow his face off. Within 3 minutes, he's like, you're next Simon Cowell. And he casted me in the Apple show, Planet of the Apps, with will.i.am, Gwyneth Paltrow, and Jessica Alba. And if that show actually got seen, unfortunately, it was before all the OTT stuff and the way TV, like that would have been right. And that would have been one of the moments. So, the reality is that,
Wow.
like I love that kind of shit. And then I'm trying to think of like something good where like, who'd I meet randomly? Like I'm trying to think of a real logical thing. Well, I took a meeting with the Jets president at a bagel store because he wanted to sell me a skybox. I told him about where the world was going. We became great friends. That's Matt Higgins, who's on Shark Tank, who's Steve Ross's right hand. That led to him leaving the Jets years later, going to Steve Ross and Dolphins. That became the gentleman who bought a piece of my company. And like that bagel meeting became a monster meeting for me, and I didn't know who Matt Higgins was going into it. So I love chance, I love momentum, and I love what starts momentum. That's where I just took this.
Yeah.
I agree more than to remind everybody right now, say yes. One thing that I hate about people that haven't achieved anything and people that have achieved everything, they overvalue their time. And it's a tricky one. If you haven't gotten there yet, people are like, Gary, I'm not doing that pro bono work. I should be compensated. I'm like, bro, your work's worth nothing. Like there's 700,000 video makers that I can tweet right now. Like, sorry, like when your work's not worth anything, like no humility. And then again, no humility. When people get fancy, I take so many small meetings. I do so many things like Tea with Gary Vee in the morning during this COVID crisis to like just help. And once every 8,000 times, it helps me. I forced somebody to leave the media team and now work in project management, a very junior employee. She's been with us for 18, 24 months. From the tippy top, all the way down to the London office on the micro media team, demanded as a dictator to move her from media to project management on two things. One, she was not having a good relationship with her managers, and it was neither of their faults after I investigated personally. And two, through the series of her communicating with me, I thought that she had tremendous organizational skills. And I saw her yesterday and she was so happy. I'm a CEO who happens to also have tens of millions of followers on social media, does public speaking, I'm here for things like this, I'm stretched incredibly thin, and yet I was able to execute against that. And this is not me saying it for everybody who's listening to think I'm good or whatever. It speaks to intent. Either, let me save everybody a lot of time on this incredible mission that this podcast is on. Either a company is about its people or a company is about money. Any company that is publicly traded or has a board that has control over the CEO, she or he has to pander to something outside of their employees. Independence, whether in the micro or at massive scale, at least gives you the chance to be employee-centric.
So how did you communicate that to her and how did she receive it?
Well, it was in the conversations I was having to her about her not being happy, and then also double checking and hearing from her managers that maybe it's her fault, was data I was collecting, and then I came over the top with HR and finance and just requested the move. So I didn't even communicate to her that I was doing the move. It just happened. When I saw her, I'm not sure she knows how much or how little I had to do with it. And I'm not really in the business of getting stars on my shirt, but I'm really happy about it. And whether it works out or not, I have no idea. But the moral of the story for everybody, one more time, especially if you're listening right now and you have the power. You know, something I said yesterday to the London office was everything at VaynerMedia is my fault. There's 1,000 things wrong right now. There's 8 to 80 people that are responsible for that, but at the end of the day, I hired and empowered those 8 to 80. If you are lucky enough to have control, and you're listening right now, and if you're listening to this, you care about the things that we care about, please look yourself in the mirror and realize you're the one that has the ability to make the change that you ideologically believe in. If you, even for a second, think it's a good idea for Apple and Google and Facebook to help you be less addicted, you are on the path of losing. You don't like Instagram? Delete it. The second we allow ourselves to let the machines help us, help ourselves, is the second you become more vulnerable. I believe that.
Could you explain that more?
Sure. Like, you want Apple to limit the amount of time you're on Instagram for you? Yeah. Like, you think that's the way, that's what, you want that? Mazel tov, take it. But like, I promise you, then there's gonna be the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. You're either social media is exposing us, it's not changing us. There is no social media, brother. They're empty f***ing pipes. Social media doesn't make you mean. Social media doesn't make you insecure. You're insecure, you're mean. We're getting exposed, not changed. We're addicted to human interaction. The reason the world exists in a world where we've had atomic bombs for 70 years is we like each other. We're not addicted to social media, we are interactive creatures. You're addicted to people. Cool, you don't wanna be on Instagram? Go read Vogue. Knock yourself out. This is a very fun thing for me to watch evolve. People don't like being held accountable. So, a lot of things, the way that these platforms claim they're addictive is the way a lot of things are addictive. Are we gonna ban pretty people? Are we gonna limit our time to watching comedy? Are we gonna limit the time we listen to music? This is the demonization of technology. Let me give you a really good piece of advice. Go read the articles around the kaleidoscope. I'm being dead serious. Go Google the early articles around the kaleidoscope. You'll think you're reading about Instagram. History's got all the answers. I could not be in this program because I failed all my classes, but the one class I was good at was history, and it is the continuous framework of how I think about a lot of this stuff. Literally the articles of the kaleidoscope are making the same arguments now. So if you have FOMO, it's because you have levels of insecurity that are raging, which has a lot more to do with the way you were parented and where you grew up and the natural DNA you were given, not Snapchat. So how do I think it's gonna play out? In its worst, our government gets disproportionately involved, which will be fine. I could care less. Just so everybody knows, I care about attention, not social media. So if we all stop doing social media, I'm gonna figure out where your eyes and ears are going. You're gonna go somewhere. We're not locking ourselves up in a room. So I don't give a f. Google and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok and LinkedIn can disappear off the face of the earth tomorrow, and I'd probably be the single happiest person because my most comfortable state is reacting quickly to where attention goes. I just feel bad for any human being that thinks that's gonna help them, because they're gonna find something else to complain about or to be controlled by. This is an internal framework conversation, not an external technology conversation.
For someone like myself who like wants to go into entrepreneurship ultimately and like start a business, like I'm interested in several areas like media, emerging tech, all that, but I don't really know like which specific thing I want to do. Would you say to like start at like some company first and then kind of figure it out from there, or just like kind of go?
How do you learn?
I think mostly by doing.
So then don't go to a company.
But I feel like there's a lot of like, I guess pressure in a sense to like, you know, go.
You can stop this sentence right there. You know that you learn that way, but you're gonna do something else based on somebody else.
Yeah, no, makes sense.
That's what everyone's doing, bro. And so everyone's sitting around and trying to figure out why all these young people are so upset. It's because of all this. Because they were over-coddled by a generation of over-coddling parents, and they don't know how to do their own shit. And I think they can do tons of and believe you can do so much as long as you tune out. Are you in a place where you're comfortable to do what I lived through? I lived it. I lived a world where, now I'm me, but 26-year-old me was ringing up my friends from high school at my dad's liquor store when they rolled in with their BMW because they went to a good school and started working at Goldman Sachs and could afford one, or not really, but they wanted to look like they could, and they were buying a case of Moet Chandon, and I was ringing it up for them, and this is real stories now, and carrying the case to their car and putting it in their trunk. I walked in feeling fulfilled because I was happy I made a sale. They were leaving there feeling unbelievable because Gary's bringing out my case. The problem was that was just when we were 26. Now that we're 43, it's real different. I just had the internal strength to deal with that scenario. 99% of you aren't.
So you talked about the volume and to get up to 5,000 pieces a day.
Yes.
But you also talked about the importance of being relevant
yes.
and having meaningful content. How do you ensure that you stay relevant to your followers and to...
The question is, in an ambition of thousands of pieces of content a day, how do I also nail home relevance, which is a big part of it? So ironically, this volume framework inevitably creates relevance. What will happen, it's kind of like a workout plan. If I'm able to get my partners, friends, people I care about, clients, my own stuff, into a framework of volume, inevitably, let's just say somebody was in here and said, approved, and everyone's like, okay, now we do it. Inevitably, tomorrow's board meeting is, well, what are we gonna say? And what you realize is, and this is devastating, like one of the things that's been really fascinating, and we work with very large companies, is once you see it, you can't unsee it. And the level of visceral negative energy I have towards the modern day marketing world, watching some of my clients starting the process of going there, it's real fun for me because literally a week earlier, they're having this subjective, completely non-practical meeting, and then a month later after the first month of this work, they can't even stay in the room for 10 minutes because it seems so silly. It's like many things in life. Once you see something, sometimes you can't unsee it. So the entire model is built on relevance. All of a sudden, you are making a piece of content to female CIOs in Russia. Because you're making 5,000 pieces of content. Like, you're not gonna make vanilla anymore. You're in the business of selling vanilla. You are. Everything is so over corporatized and everything's trying to reach everybody. Even when the seed of the idea was a good idea, by the time it sees the day of light, it's vanilla. When you've made the commitment to producing volume, everything is relevant because you start becoming educated on how deeply powerful these platforms are. And if I want to reach a CTO that went to MIT and I want to use MIT colors in the creative because I know that makes her or him more likely to click it. I mean, this is real stuff now. All of a sudden, 5,000, you can't imagine how quickly, through a detailed conversation around this, 5,000 seems way too little. Everything, like, just think about the two examples I gave you and how your mind's running with the fact that this is actually in perpetuity. Every school, every neighborhood, every geographic, every job title, every organization, like, that's just the framework of 7 or 8 cohort beginnings that is an X and Y, which allows you to go forever. You could be making content that starts with, hey, are you 28 years old? And the person sees it as, yeah, I am. You know, like, you can't imagine how infinite this actually plays out. And so, you know, it was fun to hear you ask the question because I was smiling inside. I'm like, it's once you make the commitment to that framework, the only thing you can do is relevance. And by the way, relevance is the only thing that sells, not potential reach, which is the currency of big companies. GRPs and impressions and the cost of those impressions, potential reach, not actual reach. It's being reported as you reach those people. You don't believe that. You don't believe that article reached 29 million people. Potential reach versus actualized relevant consumption. That is the delta. Is amazing about the volume model is the notion of marketing for the sake of better marketing. So what happens after you post those 78 is you start getting quant and qual feedback. And what you do with that feedback is you make the next decision, which is, are you going to write more about that? Or has there been such a huge reaction to people's response on what 5G actually means to their day-to-day, not just faster and better battery, but how our entire world changes when you create that speed of information, how that actually makes autonomous cars real, how that actually allows a doctor in Peru to perform a surgery on somebody in New York, how that actually does. When you see the response, now all of a sudden you say, you know what? That little 3 sentences we said about, did you know, when 5G is in your life, this happens, got such a big response. Why don't we now have our graphic designer make an infographic real quick around 5 things you don't know about 5G, and let's post that at 3:37 p.m. today. And then when that goes well, then you decide, why don't we make a quick little video on our iPhone talking to Lars in R&D? He knows a lot about this. Let's go over to him. Lars says, and then you just post it, not with what's quality, with green screen and lighting. I mean, I was powdered before I came out here right now. That to me is not the variable of success of this talk. That was not going to be the variable that made this go well or not. It was what I was going to say. And Lars with an iPhone with bad lighting saying something thoughtful, and then that posted at 7:04 p.m. on our Twitter to the small group that matters. And so when you get into that mindset, you can see how it works. And it's really just having writers, designers, something we call predators, shredditors, which are people who can film and post-produce for the channel all in one person. Talent, humans, commitment to being able to pay those people to do the thing, because you value that more than the lighting in your booth in Spain at a conference. Evan, thank you so much for having a couple seconds and being able to tell the Believe Nation a little bit about Empathy Wines. It means a lot to me that you would take this valuable real estate and time on your channel to give me some love. It means a lot. It's just good karma points, and so you're awesome. Thank you. Believe Nation, if you're into wine at all, go to empathywines.com. My whole career's work was poured into producing a wine that rivaled $40 to $60 wine for 20 bucks a bottle. I'm just super excited about this subscription-based wine business. You can order 3, 6, or 12 bottles in subscription form, rosé, white, red. If you search on Instagram or Twitter, you will be blown away. People are literally like, I don't even like Gary Vee, but the wine's good. Super proud of the effort. Thanks, Evan, for the time. Wishing you guys all happy and healthy.
If you want another amazing Gary Vaynerchuk video, check it out right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
I'm unbelievably passionate about people finding more optimistic, practical friends.
You shift your friends, you will shift your life. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to do it.